What is up, golf fans, and welcome back to another episode of Fairways and Dreams. I'm your host, Jeff Hartman, here on this Tuesday podcast where I talk about anything that I find interesting in the game of golf. It could be related to the latest news. It could be something completely different. In this case, it is the latter, something completely different, but we will get to the latest news in the game of golf after the Cognizant Classic last week. We'll talk about that dramatic tournament. And just to give you the lay of the land, tomorrow we are going to have a press podcast. The Arnold Palmer Invitational, which is a signature event, is coming up, and that's going to be worth talking about. This is going to be a big event for sure. We'll touch a little bit on that. We'll do our predictions. We'll talk about our picks last week, which actually went really, really well, and that's all coming up. And then Thursday, I might have a two-man scramble. I'm working with someone, not sure if it's going to work out this week. If not, we're going to have a core review as we have been doing to give you 3 shows for the week. So be on the lookout for all of that. But let's talk about the fine line between enjoying golf and taking advantage of the game. So this is a topic that is all based around a social media post that I saw. And I'm going to give credit. This is a Soba Golf, S-O-B-A Golf. Soba Golf Co. is their handle on Instagram. And this is a younger guy, and he got sober, and he has a golf account, and he golfs. And he put this out in several slides, but I'm going to read them to you. It says, no more gimmies in golf. If you're brand new, fine, pick it up, keep moving. But if you say you care about getting better, the ball goes in the hole. Because gimmies lie to you. They turn missed putts into imaginary makes. Pressure is part of the game, so is discomfort. If you want real confidence, earn it. And again, that's Soba Golf. So, hey, it's a good message. I totally understand what this young man is trying to convey. And I say young man because he's probably younger than I am. But I wanted to talk about this. I feel like there is a fine line between enjoying golf to the fullest of its capabilities and then taking advantage of the game. So this is not just about gimmies, by the way. We're going to start off talking about gimmies, but I feel like there's so much more here to kind of unpack. I think this is about the nature of the game. We all know that the game stems from you have to be able to take the little golf ball and traverse however many yards that particular hole is, and you have to try and knock the ball into said hole. That is the nature of the game. I understand that. But this also has to do with an enjoyment level of the game. And that's why the title of the podcast is there's a fine line between enjoying golf and taking advantage of the game. And when I say this doesn't just pertain to gimmies, it's also for things like mulligans, breakfast balls, people that golf recreationally that maybe, in case you don't know what a breakfast ball is, on the first tee, if you hook one into the woods, hey, breakfast ball, and put another one down. It's essentially another term for a mulligan. And some people play that way because that's the only way to make it enjoyable. I totally understand it. And I think a lot of this comes down to how were you raised in the game of golf? There are people that were probably raised in the game of golf with very strict rules. They followed the letter of the law to a T. They were the people that were raised by, if you hit one and you can't find it, you're walking your butt back to the tee box and you're taking stroke and distance. And then there were people that were raised with a little bit more, I want to say levity, but also just a little bit more relaxed nature about the game. They were the people that said, if there's a little 2-footer, just pick it up. Just pick it up. It's good. Don't worry about it. The same people that if you hit a ball and you thought you could find it, but you can't, then just drop one up here, take a stroke, and we'll play on. There's 2 different worlds of thought here. Okay. Now, for me personally, I was brought up in that second atmosphere. My dad was very lenient with us as kids, and he still is lenient with me as an adult and my kids and his grandkids, obviously, where especially if you're struggling on a hole, we'll talk about this in a second, sometimes you just need to get off the hole. I think we can all agree with that, especially young golfers, youth golfers. I feel like sometimes it can do more harm than good when they're chipping and they're blading it over the green. Sometimes you just got to say, look, you've already taken 7 shots on this par 4. Just pick it up. Let's move on. And so I think that how we were brought into the game absolutely does play a role into how we view this topic as adults and with our own game. But the one thing that I can't get out of my head, and something that stuck with me with this Instagram post that I saw, to me, there is a time and a place for both. There is a time for real strict rules. You follow the letter of the law and you putt everything out. And then there's a time and a place for let's just be a little bit more relaxed. Let's work on our game let's do some gimmies and let's do drop a second ball and play another shot from a certain location if you hit one poorly. There is a time and place. I just don't understand why in this regard, everything, and this is more of a cultural thing, especially in the United States in the social media era, everything has to be so black and white. When in reality, it can be a mixture of both. I feel like it could be gray. And so I think it comes down to your experience. As it said in that Instagram post, if you're a beginner, fine, pick it up and move along. I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. If you're someone that has that experience and you've played forever, it just depends on who you're with as well. Like the experience is not just your experience in the game, it's the experience you're looking to attain on the course. So I know that growing up in Wheeling, West Virginia, golfing with my dad's friends, it would depend which friends I was playing, like my dad's buddies and his golf gang that he always plays with. Depending on who I was playing with, depended on how the round was going to be viewed. So there were friends of my dad's that I would golf with as a teenager, and I knew we were going to be playing by the rules. If you're far, you're hitting. If they are all waiting up at the green and you're hacking around, they're going to wait. And you're going to play in the rotation that the game is designed to be played in. In other words, the furthest person from the hole is the one to go next. There were also people that were really, really tight in terms of gimme putts. It's a situation where there are times where you have a little 2.5 footer, it might be a bender, and they're going to make you putt it out. Whereas there's other groups, and again, I go back to my youth, where my dad's buddies were so lenient and say, hey, just pick it up. That's good. That's good. You got that. That's good. And I have to be honest with you, it depends on what kind of experience you're looking to get out of it. I think sometimes it's all going to be best if everyone just says at the very beginning of the round, especially if you're playing with people you're not too familiar with, how do you handle things like this? Do you guys, you guys give putts? You guys real lenient with that? Because I got to be honest, when I play with new people, I tend to go back to the way I was raised in the game. I want those people that I'm golfing with to be relaxed. I don't want them to feel like they're playing in a tournament. And so I will give a lot of putts. And I might say to them, hey, you can putt that in, but it's good. It's good by me. Good by me. And that way, if they can putt it, and if they make it, that's great. If they don't, that's fine. It's good anyways. It's all about the experience. But I do think that the next factor here is skill level. When I take my kids, and those kids will vary from age 17 on down to 7, that when they're on the golf course, I'm going to be extremely lenient with them. They hit a ball in the woods. I don't care. Put one up by mine. Let's go. And I understand why some people would say, well, Jeff, you might be teaching them some bad habits. If I'm teaching them, then they're eventually going to know the proper things to do and not to do. And so if they continue to play the game, and if I continue to be the one that's introducing them to the game and teaching them the game and teaching them the nuances of said game, then they're going to eventually know that, you can't do that. That I did that for you when you were learning, but that's not how we can do things all the time. But I do think that sometimes you get a little bit of confidence when, you stick one in close and someone says, pick it up. Don't worry about it. Pick it up. Or if it's a long putt, maybe you nuzzle it up to 2 feet. That's good. I feel like there is some confidence in that. And people will say, well, you still got to put the ball in the hole. I understand that. And I've played in tournaments. And yes, when I practiced leading up to those tournaments, you hold out every putt. It was a part of it. You had to get used to doing it. What this ultimately boils down to with me is that I just don't understand the premise behind saying that you can never do gimmies. If I'm golfing with my friends, if I'm golfing with my children, if I'm golfing with my family, it doesn't matter. We're going to give each other putts. I don't care. And never once, if I was granted, I don't know, a 3-footer for bogey or something, I never once think about that after the round and say, I don't know if I would have made that putt. There are times when I'm with my dad or his buddies, and maybe I have a 4-footer, and I don't know if they see that distance from where I am. Maybe if they're behind the hole, they might think it's a lot closer. And I might say, thanks, but I'm going to putt this one out. Because I can see the difference between this is a 99.9% make, and this is now a 75% make. Everyone is different. I think for me, my approach to the game is I just want everyone to be comfortable. If someone is hacking around a hole, I don't care if they're an adult or they're a child, if they're a beginner, if they're experienced, it shouldn't matter. Everyone that keeps a handicap should know there are certain times where you can't card over a double bogey. So what are we doing? What are we doing? Are we trying to like punish this individual by saying you're going to hole out no matter what? At some point, you just say, babe, what's that for? And they might say this is for a 7 on a par 4. Just pick it up. It's good. It's good. Just pick it up. Let's move on with our lives. But then there's those people, and clearly the individual that put out this post that said, this is what I think should happen. Maybe that's not always the case. Again, tournament golf, preparing for tournament golf, you hole everything out, you play by the rules, you prepare yourself for those stringent conditions. I get it. However, when you're not preparing for tournament golf, when you're not playing in tournament golf, my gosh, lighten up a little bit. Lighten up. I mean, he's on post 2. It's like, I play to improve. We all do. We all do. But I, again, don't think that, and if you're giving yourself putts when you're playing by yourself or something, that's a different story altogether. It kind of reminds me, maybe you remember this commercial, maybe you don't. I want to say it was a Bud Light, Miller Lite commercial, one of the beer companies. And they were sitting in a cart and they said, they hit a drive. Like, oh, good drive, good drive. And they hit on the green, like, good? And like, yeah. And next they just giving everyone, they're giving each other the shots. And then they're like, oh, at the end of the round, hey, we just set a course record. No one's expecting that, or at least they shouldn't. You know, if you have a 10-footer, unless it's for a quadruple bogey, you got to putt it out. You know, you got to putt it out. If you're playing for money, and I'm talking about a substantial amount of money. But you know what's interesting? As I say a substantial amount of money, I always revert back to when I golfed the most, which was when I was towards the end of high school. When we were playing, even if it was for, you know, you're doing your typical Nassau, $1 Nassau, you're doing a, you know, front back total, $1 each. There were times where there might have been, hey, there's a press, there's 2 presses going on. There are situations where all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is a big putt. This putt's for $5. That's a lot of money, but it's for $5. And you think you're going to be given that putt? No way. And you would be stunned if they did give you the putt, but you know you're going to have to make that putt. You got to make the putt. And so this is why it's kind of like to try and answer the question, gimme or no gimme? That's the question. And to me, the answer is it can be both. It can be both. You can play with people that you know they're not going to do gimmies. We're going to have to hole everything out. Unless it is a literal tap-in. We're talking within a foot. You got to putt it. You know that. And then you're going to be golfing with people that you know are also going to be way more lenient, and they're going to be more willing to give you putts, and that's fine too. And this also comes into what is the leather? You know, everyone always says if it's good, it's within the leather. What does that mean? Some people see it as within the leather is within a grip distance from the cup. So if you have your putter grip, you laid it down. If it's within that leather, because grips used to be leather, bound leather, then that's good. That's a gimme. But some people would say, no, within the leather is actually, if you lay the putter down opposite, if it's within from the end of the grip to the hole, meaning the putter distance, then it's good. I don't think it has to be that complicated. Understand the situation, understand who you're playing with, understand the setting and everything about the course, and just have fun. Golf is supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be an enjoyable experience. And I know that when I golf with my kids, and I'm way more lenient with them in terms of giving them a few putts here or there and allowing them to, you know, if they're right behind a tree, just kick it out to the side. Let's move on. Let's keep playing. They enjoy the game more. They're more likely to want to go out and play with me again the next time I golf. If I were to say, no, you need to figure this out. How are you going to hit it around that tree? You're going to punch it out. My kids are not going to play in college. My kids are not going to play tournament golf. I just want them to be able to enjoy the game. I think that's what it comes down to. If you're someone that enjoys the game by constantly holing out putts, then you continue to hole out putts. That's good for you. And if you're playing with people that give putts and they just know they're not going to give you any, that's fine. Some people are just so adamant that it's one way or the highway. And I just don't like that. I just don't like that. If you want to give gimmies, do gimmies. You want to do mulligans and breakfast balls? It's not my thing, but if it's your thing, sure, go for it. Let's make golf fun, not make it more complex and stressful. That's the key. All right. If you want to let me know what you think about this topic, hit me up on social media at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT on Twitter or X. And then also on Instagram at @thegolf_life. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know. Let's talk about the latest news in the game of golf. Nico Echevarria wins the Cognizant Classic. This guy called his shot. He spoke after the tournament. He said, I met with my financial advisor. He and his wife just moved into a new house down in Florida near PGA National. And he said, I told him, I think I'm going to win this week. And he did. Good for him. It was his third career win on the PGA Tour. Called his shot. And talk about clutch down the stretch. The bear trap, especially on number 17. Barely got it over the water, drains a birdie putt, just really, really clutch down the stretch. But I don't think anyone that is talking about the Cognizant Classic, because let's be honest, it's not a big name event. There's not a lot of big name golfers in the event. If you watched it, if you followed it, then you're talking about Shane Lowry's collapse. He had a 3-shot lead heading into 16 on Sunday, and he went back-to-back double bogeys. And that is what derailed his tournament. He doubled 16. He doubled 17 in the water on both of those holes. And that is what ultimately did him in. He had to eventually try and eagle 18, pulled his 3-wood into the bunker, had to try and make a bunker shot. Obviously, that didn't happen. But that's what everyone's talking about. And it was so crazy. And I might do an entire podcast on this. It was so crazy to watch how fast things unraveled for Shane Lowry. They went south in a hurry. I mean, a really, really quick way. They just turned, it got real ugly real quick. I see that in my own game sometimes. I'm not a professional golfer. I was stunned to see Shane Lowry get up there and block one into the water and then do the same thing on the next hole with an iron in his hands. It was mind-numbing. This guy was in cruise control, and I felt bad for him. I wanted to give him a lot of credit because he did talk to the media. He did answer all the questions, and he said, look, I just wanted to win for my 4-year-old who was in attendance. He said, she's never seen me win in person. I wanted nothing more than on 18 to have her run out on the hole on the 18th green and let me celebrate. He said, I've never done that. I obviously never will now. It was a gut-wrenching answer, but it was also 100% truthful and honest. And he's had a lot of misses so far this season. He lost on the DP World Tour in dramatic fashion. Now he lost again. He hasn't won, I don't believe, since the Open Championship in 2019. He's on quite the drought. We ripped on Colin Morikawa, but Shane Lowry, unless you count the Zurich when he won it with Rory, which I don't. I mean, it counts as a PGA Tour win, but it's an individual win. It's tough. It's tough to watch. It was a choke job of all choke jobs. Shane Lowry loses it, I think, more than Nico Echevarria wins it, but nonetheless, congratulations to Nico on the win. Now, there were a lot of people that were criticizing PGA National for the overseeding and it wasn't playing that tough. You saw on Thursday and Friday, then a lot of players going really low, and then the wind started to kick up. And that bear trap, this is for the second straight year, the bear trap has been absolutely brutal. Last year, Joe Highsmith wins, and he won because I believe it was Jake Knapp. Michael Kim might have been in the final pairing as well, or in the final groups there. The bear trap will get you every single year. That is a tough finishing stretch, those 3 holes with water everywhere. I thought PGA National, the criticism, I get it, but at the same time, it was up to that. When the wind is blowing, it is a tough test for golf. I thought it did a good job. I want to talk a little bit about the TGL. They're getting into their playoffs, and I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't watched a lot. I haven't watched a lot. There's been a lot of things that I don't like about the TGL. There's a lot of things I do, but there's more that I don't anymore than I do. And we've talked about this on the Golf Mixtape Tour. I've done podcasts about how the TGL missed a really good opportunity when they started to treat it like an actual league, and their ratings are down. They're down about 20% from a year ago, but they're stable. And that's an important thing to say, is that they're not continually going down 20%. A year over year, they're down about 20%. But this year in 2026, they've been relatively stable, meaning they have viewership. They keep coming back and keep watching. Now, what's the difference? Well, the schedule is different. And this is, again, why I said, if you go back and listen to that podcast, which was done probably almost a year ago when the TGL ended, is when I did the podcast last year about how they missed an opportunity. And I talked about how they need to have a schedule that is reliable and consistent. So they need to have a schedule where it's like, okay, here's what we're doing. This is when we play. This is the match. And if it was on ESPN, that's great. But now it's a different schedule. Max Homa finished his final round of the Cognizant, finished in the top 20. He had to get into a car, go to SoFi where they do the TGL. He had to change, shower, and then go and golf on the TGL. Think about that. That's crazy. You shouldn't have a Sunday afternoon, evening, especially with the PGA Tour event that day. You should not have that conflicting. And so the different schedule, Tiger Woods has not been playing. He's been there. Everyone thought that he might play towards the end of the season, but he hasn't. Tiger Woods, again, people aren't necessarily tuning in just to see him. They want to see him golf. And we haven't gotten to see that because when he ruptured Achilles tendon, then he had to have the disc replacement surgery on his back. It's tough. And then also they've been on ESPN2 a lot and not on ESPN. And that's a difference maker in terms of how many people view it, how many people get to see it. All that stuff matters. All that stuff matters. So the TGL, maybe you watch it, maybe you don't. It's entering the final month of their schedule. So we'll see how things play out there. All right. The upcoming schedule, just want to remind you, this weekend, the Arnold Palmer Invitational is a signature event and it has a cut. I was under the assumption, maybe this was a couple years ago when they did this, where all signature events, there was no cut. If you got in, you were playing all 4 rounds, but that's not the case. And we saw this in the last signature event, and that is that you have to make the cut. And Scottie Scheffler almost missed that cut. And this is in terms of the Arnold Palmer Invitational, there is a cut field of the top 50, and you have to be within 10 strokes. So Arnold Palmer signature event, we'll be talking about that tomorrow on the press podcast. But then coming up after that, to give you the lay of the land, we have the Arnold Palmer this weekend, the Puerto Rico Open the week after, and John Daly's son's going to be in that field, actually. That was just announced. Then they go back to Florida for the Players' Championship. Then we have the 3-week Texas run leading up to the Masters, the Valspar. I think the Valspar is still in Florida, if I'm correct. Then you go to Texas for the Texas Children's, then the Valero, then you go to the Masters. And that's when it all starts happening. The Masters kicks off the major championships, which should be a lot of fun. But that does it for me. I mentioned this earlier. If you have any thoughts on a topic or you have a comment about what I'm suggesting or saying on the podcast, hit me up on social media. Other than that, I will be back tomorrow with another press podcast. You know, we finish these up. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you tomorrow.